There is a river in the Amazon jungle that boils everything alive. Not metaphorically, not almost, literally boils. Animals that fall in don't just die, they cook. Fur, feathers, skin, all of it. And the temperature in some sections reaches nearly 100 degrees Celsius. Boiling point in the middle of a rainforest with no volcano anywhere near it. Scientists couldn't explain it for decades, and when they finally went to investigate, what they found was even stranger than the river itself. Think about that for a second. The Amazon is already one of the most extreme places on Earth. Jaguars, anacondas, parasites that do things to the human body that I won't describe right now. But somehow, in the middle of all that, there is a river so hot it kills everything that touches it. And for most of modern history, scientists thought it was a legend, a local myth, something the indigenous people made up. They were wrong. If you enjoy real mysteries, hidden science, and facts that make you question everything you thought you knew, subscribe right now, because this story gets a lot stranger before it gets any clearer. Let's talk about where this river actually is and why almost nobody in the scientific world took it seriously for so long. The river is called Shanai Timpishka. In the local language, that translates roughly to boiled with the heat of the sun. It flows through a remote section of the Peruvian Amazon, deep inside the Huánuco region. It's not easy to get to. No roads, no tourist infrastructure. You have to travel by boat, then on foot through dense jungle to reach it. And when you get there, you see it immediately. Steam rising from the surface of the water, the edges of the river clouded with vapor, and anything that falls in, insects, frogs, small animals, dies almost instantly. The flesh cooks on contact. The indigenous Ashaninka people have known about this river for generations. They consider it sacred. They call it the River of the Gods. And for a long time, that's all it was, a local legend that the outside world either hadn't heard of or simply didn't believe. Here's what almost nobody knows. The scientist who finally investigated this river wasn't a veteran researcher with a massive grant and a full expedition team. It was a geology PhD student named Andrés Russo, and he only heard about the river because of a story his grandfather told him when he was a child. His grandfather claimed to have seen it during a military expedition deep in the Amazon. Russo grew up, studied geology, and one day, almost as a joke, mentioned the river to his professors. They told him it was impossible. And here's the problem. According to everything we know about geothermal heat, the kind of heat that comes from inside the earth, a boiling river can only exist near a volcano. The heat source has to be close, it has to be powerful, and there are no active volcanoes anywhere near the Shanai Timpishka. The nearest volcanic system is hundreds of kilometers away, so by standard geological logic, this river should not exist. But it does. Russo decided to find out why. In 2011, he traveled to Peru, connected with his aunt who actually knew where the river was, and made the journey into the jungle. And what he saw confirmed everything his grandfather had described. The river was real, the heat was real, and it was far more extreme than he had imagined. Let me give you the actual numbers because they're important. The Shanai Timpishka stretches for about 6 kilometers. In some sections, the water temperature reaches 86 degrees Celsius. In others, the hottest parts, it gets close to 100. That is boiling point at sea level, in the jungle, in a river with no volcano in sight. And this is where it gets even stranger. When Russo and his team started collecting water samples and measuring temperatures at different points along the river, they noticed something that didn't fit the standard explanation. The heat wasn't uniform. It varied. Some sections were much hotter than others. Some tributaries feeding the river were cold, normal Amazon temperature,
and the pattern of heat distribution didn't match what you'd expect from a simple underground heat source.
This suggested something more complex was happening beneath the surface. Now, here's what the science eventually found, and it's not what you'd expect. The leading explanation right now involves something called a non-volcanic geothermal feature. Deep beneath the Amazon basin, there are fault lines, cracks in the Earth's crust. Rainwater seeps into these faults, travels deep underground, gets heated by the Earth's natural internal temperature, and then rises back up through these same faults into the river system above. It's essentially a giant natural heating system buried under the jungle, with the river acting as the outlet valve where all that heated water escapes back to the surface. Think about it like this. Imagine pouring cold water into one end of a long underground pipe that passes near a massive furnace. By the time the water comes out the other end, it's hot. That's a simplified version of what's happening under the Sinai Tempishka, except the pipe is a network of geological faults, and the furnace is the Earth's own internal heat radiating up from the mantle. But here's the detail that makes this genuinely unsettling. This process requires a very specific set of geological conditions to produce water this hot over a river this large. Conditions that scientists are still mapping and don't fully understand. What that means is that while we have a plausible explanation for how the river is heated, we still don't have a complete picture of the underground system that's causing it. There are still unknowns, still gaps. And there's another layer to this that most science videos skip over entirely. The river doesn't just kill things that fall in, it changes the ecosystem around it. The banks of the Sinai Tempishka are unlike anything else in the Amazon. The extreme heat creates a microclimate, a zone where the air is permanently warmer and more humid than the surrounding jungle. Certain plants grow differently near the river. Certain insects avoid it entirely. Others have adapted to the edges of it. There is an entire biological zone built around this impossible water source, just like the organisms that cluster around the hydrothermal vents at the bottom of the ocean. The river that kills also creates a dead zone that somehow supports life on its edges. Now let's talk about what actually happens when something enters the water, because this is the part that's difficult to forget once you hear it. Russo documented multiple cases of animals falling into the river during his fieldwork. Small mammals, birds, frogs. The process is not instantaneous in the way you might imagine. It's not like an explosion or a sudden disappearance. The animal hits the water, and within seconds, the proteins in its body begin to denature. That's the technical term for what heat does to biological tissue. The same thing that happens when you cook an egg. The transparent becomes white. The soft becomes firm. The living becomes something else entirely. In hotter sections of the river, large animals can be dead and partially cooked within minutes. The Ashanyanika people who live near the river use the hot sections for cooking. They have for generations. They know exactly which parts of the river are hot enough to prepare food and which parts are merely warm. This knowledge has been passed down for centuries, long before any scientist ever heard of the place. And this brings up something that bothers me about how this story is usually told. The Ashanyanika people knew about this river. They mapped it, understood it, used it, built a spiritual relationship with it over hundreds of years, and the scientific world treated it as a myth until a geology student decided to take his grandfather's story seriously. How many other things exist in the world right now that local communities know about and the scientific establishment hasn't investigated because it doesn't fit existing models? Think about that. Russo published his research on the Sinai Tempishka in 2016. He wrote a book about it. He gave a TED Talk. And slowly, the river started getting the attention it deserved. But it's still not widely known. Most people who love science have never heard of it, which means most people have no idea that in the middle of the Amazon forest, right now, there is a river that has been boiling continuously for longer than recorded human history, and it's not going anywhere. The geological system that heats the Sinai Tempishka has been operating for thousands of years, possibly longer. The river isn't a recent phenomenon. It's not getting worse or better in any dramatic way. It's just there, constant, steaming, killing, creating, a permanent feature of the Amazon that most of the world still doesn't know exists. Here's what makes this story matter beyond just being strange. The Shanai Timpishka is a reminder that the Earth is not a finished object. It's an active system. There are geological processes happening right now beneath our feet that we don't fully understand, forces that have been operating for millions of years that we discovered only recently or haven't discovered at all. The Amazon basin alone likely contains dozens of geological features that have never been scientifically documented, features that local communities know about, features that could change how we understand the planet. We talk about space exploration as the great frontier, and it is, but the Earth itself is still full of things we haven't found, haven't explained, and haven't even looked for properly. A boiling river in the middle of a rainforest with no volcano nearby. Real, documented, partially explained, still not fully understood. The planet is stranger than we give it credit for, and the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. The sky still hides secrets, and this is just the beginning. Subscribe to Fact Harbor for more mysteries.